Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. AFC East matchup as the Jets host the Patriots. This is the first time Bill Belichick hasn't been on the sideline for one of these games since 1996. As you can see, the Jets are favored by 6.5. We'll tell you how rare that is, and we'll answer the real question. Will Aaron Rodgers' home debut or home opener success continue, or will Week 3 bite the Jets in the tuchus once again? It's all ahead on the Pregame Powerup on DraftKings Network. MetLife is the place to be as Aaron Rodgers makes his home opening debut in 2024 for the Jets, and everybody in Jets faithful is hoping it'll last a lot longer than the home opener did last year for him, all of 4 plays. And we'll see what happens, because this is historically a really, really bad time for the Jets. We'll get into all of that. Glad you were with us here in the Pregame Powerup on DraftKings. Trey Wingo here with Claudia Bellafato. Emerson Latzia will join us from MetLife with his interesting musings, as they always are. Claudia, there's a lot to get into tonight. Just the fact that the Patriots are down 6.5 to the Jets, and the fact that the Jets are favored is so rare for this matchup.
Yes, and I will say market did move right up until this show started. The total, I should say, the side opened 6.5, went down to 6 right before the show started, back to 6.5. I don't want to bury the lead, though. It's Trey's birthday, everybody.
All
so
right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. You get to watch Aaron Rodgers and the Jets on your birthday. How lucky are you? And yes, they are favored in the spot, and the Sharps are liking them tonight.
I'm lucky to be here working with you and everybody else at DraftKings Network. And by the way, when I say historically Week 3 is bad, over the last decade, these are the Jets' numbers in Week 3, regardless of who they're playing and regardless of who their quarterback is. 1-9, tied for dead last in the NFL. Points per game, 11.3, last in the NFL. Yards per game, 257, dead last in the NFL. Scoring margin, -117, dead last in the NFL. Turnover margin, -20. You guessed it, dead last in the NFL. The Jets as a franchise would love to skip Week 3, but they can't because it's their home opener. And of course, all eyes, Claudia, are on Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, certainly so. And the Jets as a franchise, just 1-1 so far this season, but neither the offense or defense seems to have anything working together, right? They're not on all cylinders. Last week against Tennessee, Rodgers just 18 of 30, 176 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns in a game-winning drive, which, yeah, he's the quarterback. But interestingly enough, that was the first time a Jets starting quarterback led a game-winning drive since when? Ryan Fitzpatrick in Week 13 of 2015. That sounds like a fake stat, but it's true. That brings us to Power Up Play. Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP, but also 40 years old, and whether it's the age or the changing roster, the passing yards have taken a dip. He's gone 24 straight games without 300 passing, entering Week 3 this season without a 200-yard game for the first time in his career. And when it comes to his passing prop, he's 15-5 to the under in his last 20. Tonight's prop is over 200 yards, currently at 216.5. That's gone up. It was 212 earlier today. So something to think about, but I know you, and all you do when talking about Aaron Rodgers usually has to do with fading him.
Well, look, it's just a question of what Aaron Rodgers are we getting, right? You mentioned some of those numbers. He's now gone 24 straight games without throwing for 300 yards, which predates all his time with the Jets. And that's the longest streak in the NFL for any quarterback that has gone that long without throwing for 300 yards. You mentioned it. In his first 2 games this year, he's yet to cross 200 yards passing. That's the first time that's happened in his career. And I get it. There are extenuating circumstances here. He's coming back from almost a complete year off with the Achilles tear. He's going to be 41 later on this year, which, by the way, I consider to be very young. But in football parlance, you're getting up there. So you really have to question, are people putting too much value on what they believe Aaron Rodgers is as opposed to what he was?
Yeah, and I will say the public, this number was bet down. It opened 218.5. The public bet it all the way down to 214.5. So everybody heading into this game, even if they're not high on the Patriots and not expecting much from that offense, because clearly it's not explosive, they're not really expecting this game to be explosive, and that's why we saw the move on the total as well. Open 40.5, down to 38.5, because what are these two teams going to do? Run the ball.
Yeah, if the Jets are not explosive, the Patriots offense doesn't even have X in it. Like they don't even have plosive. There are no downfield shots when it comes to what the New England Patriots are doing. Can they do that tonight with Jacoby Brissett against the supposedly fierce Jets defense? For more on this, let's go to the third member of our crew, the always entertaining and informative Emerson Lazzi, who's standing by at MetLife. Emerson, how are we this morning or this evening, whatever time of day it is?
You know what? I'm doing great, Trey, because it was today years old. That's how old I was when I found out it's your birthday. So happy birthday, Trey. I'm really happy that you were here with us and you are still alive. As for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, I'm not quite sure if their chances of winning a Super Bowl again are even alive. Now, you guys know me. I'm a grinder. I put in the work. So I pulled the game tape of every Jets game last year, and I went through, broke it down, every snap that Aaron Rodgers played. He wasn't great last year, and it turns out he hasn't been great through 2 games this year, as you've already alluded to. Fewest completions, attempts, and also yards through 2 games in Aaron Rodgers' career. But his head coach, Robert Saleh, seems to be one of those glass half full guys.
It's a funny feeling in the sense that, we recognize that we can be better, but we're still scoring. It's back-to-back games with 3 touchdowns, and which hasn't happened here in a long time, and we're still looking at it like, man, we got so much more in the tank, and all that's going to come. There's a lot of guys who haven't played football in a long time. There's a lot of guys who've been injured and out of the lineup, and with regard to the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, we're looking at an offense that's still trying to learn itself, find itself, and it's still able to generate scoring drives, more so than most teams in this organization's past.
We got to change a couple things. We got to be a little sharper. Just, we got to start faster. We've been, starting really slow the first 2 weeks. So we got to start faster, put something together in the first 15, and give our defense a chance to play with the lead.
Well, something that could help Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, who, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's in his goth era right now, is Juwan Bentley, the leading tackler for the Patriots last year. Yeah, he's out for the season. The Jets are also dealing with a number of huge injuries. It would be a perfect time to have a guy like Hassan Reddick, on the field, but that's not happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Doug Codd, who works for the Boston Herald. Coming up in this show, he's going to join me because, listen, the Patriots, especially in the offensive line, in shambles. Like every single one of those guys was on the injury report this week. It's not great, Bob. So Trey, Claudia, friends watching, I'll be back here soon.
Emerson, we appreciate that, and most importantly, we appreciate a live shot from a stadium without any references to pectoral perspiration. We will check back with you a little bit later on in this very fine program we like to call the Pregame Powerup on DraftKings. We always like to go for the matchups inside the matchups, right? Those are the things that normally tip the scales in a game one way or the other. And you've got to look at what we're seeing here tonight with Christian Gonzalez, the matchup to watch on Garrett Wilson for the majority of the game, the outstanding young corner for the Patriots. In the first 2 weeks, Gonzalez has successfully shadowed both Jamar Chase and DK Metcalf. And another thing working against Wilson tonight, Rodgers has yet to complete a pass from outside the tackle box this season with 3 incompletions and 2 sacks. Rodgers not extending plays means less time for Wilson to get open. And Claudia, the other thing we should point out here, the last time that Christian Gonzalez went up against Garrett Wilson last season, he was held to 3 receptions for only 18 yards. This kid is one of the best young corners in the game.
That's going to be the matchup that everybody's watching, and of course that's going to play hugely into the game script of this. Will the Jets have to be one-dimensional? Can they get the running game and the passing game going? Or will Gonzalez lock them up? We will see. We're going to talk to Mike Pritchard in a second about that matchup. But let's talk about where the money is coming in right now. To put all of this very simply, everybody is on New York Jets money line. That's the handle. That's the public. Everybody's loving them on the money line to win straight up. Everybody's on the under. That's why we saw that total move down. But when it comes to covering that 6.5, move back to 6.5, 40% of the handle is on New England, which means the sharps like the Jets. That's the opposite. The public is on New England to cover. So interesting when you see the money move the opposite ways there. Let's bring in some expert analysis here. former wide receiver Mike Pritchard to talk about this game and break it all down. In Las Vegas, Mike, I just mentioned it, the public lights the Patriots, the Sharps are on the Jets. Which way do you go here?
Well, I'm going to go with the Sharps, to be honest with you. I talked about this last week. I'm normally a dog player, but, you know, when you got the Jets that can get to so many different things offensively with an elite defense, in my opinion, as well, matched up against a team that's trying to get things organized and trying to come out the gate. I mean, in the New England Patriots. So you got a team that's going to be so basic offensively. Now, defensively, they can get after you a little bit, but they're banged up over there as well. So I like the Jets home opener. They've been on the road a couple of weeks. Some home cooking is going to do the Jets well tonight.
Okay, I feel like either way, if it's the Jets or the Patriots, it's going to be a low-scoring game. 11-5 to the under was all of the NFL last week. So when it comes to this, the total has moved down significantly, but maybe not low enough is 38.5.
Well, you know, this is a tough number because if you look at their season averages right now from an offensive output, it's right on that number, right? 39, 38.5. So I think the Jets might be explosive tonight, though. Aaron Rodgers talked about that during the week. He wanted to be aggressive with the first 15. They're at home, like I mentioned. I think they're going to be energized and ready to go from the kickoff. So I think they're going to score some points on this Patriots defense. So I'm not going to play it over just because of the line movement. But if I were to play the number, that's where I would go. I would go to the over.
And of course, the Patriots dealing with a lot of injuries on both lines, so I suppose that does make sense. Let's talk about that matchup. Aaron Rodgers was very vocal earlier this week saying that Christian Gonzalez player, he's an elite corner, but of course he's going up against one of the best receivers in the game. So who do you like in that matchup with him and Wilson?
You know, I'm a wide receiver, Claudia, so I can't side with the defensive back, right? I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I can respect his game, though. Christian Gonzalez is amazing. He started at Colorado, by the way, before ending up at Oregon. So I love his game. If the Jets are smart, if Hackett is smart, he'll move Wilson around. He's got Mike Williams back as well. So he'll move Wilson around, some motion, some shifting, just to get away from that matchup at times to kind of feature Wilson. If Hackett is not smart, then he's just going to line him straight up, right? But I expect some movement from Garrett Wilson to get away from that fine cornerback and Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, and a lot of people saying, too, that this is going to be the first real big matchup, but they just played Seattle. They have a ton of weapons as well, and we saw how close that game got for the Patriots. One glaring weakness, though, is the fact that they have been very one-dimensional. Just 85 receiving yards for this squad, which is the lowest amount in 2 games over the last 10 years. So I'm not going to ask you if that's a problem, because it clearly is. So the question is, Mike, how did they fix that?
Well, I don't know if they can, Claudia, because this is who the Patriots are. I mean, they're not built to be prolific at all. We'll see when he gets into the fold at quarterback, but I don't know when that's going to be. Their offensive line is in shambles. When you're starting over as an organization, as a team, you're going to get to the basics. You're going to run the football and play defense, and that's exactly what the Patriots are made up of right now. So this game is so much about adjustments. The Jets have the ability to get to adjustments, whereas the Patriots, they just don't have those right now.
And can I just ask you this one last question? Because they have relied on Ramondre Stevenson massively, you would think 2 weeks in, everybody has the tape. We've all watched the games. The Jets are going to scheme accordingly, correct? And I assume he'll see some heavier boxes here.
Yeah, scheme is one thing, but the willingness is another, though. I mean, the Jets are giving up so many yards on the ground, right? I think San Francisco took it to them. But the willingness that's the challenge. Can the Jets meet the willingness to put their hat in a hole, in a gap, and fill it, and be physical out there tonight?
All right, Mike Pritchard, we appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the game.
All right, appreciate you as well. Thanks.
Speaking of the quarterback matchup here, job security is ball security. Flip it whatever way you want it. It's true. And Aaron Rodgers and Jacoby Brissett are at the top of the board when it comes to not throwing interceptions. All-time pass interception percentage, they are the top. And tonight, Rodgers' interception, you can get him at plus 110. Brissett, minus 105. Possibilities there you might want to look at, Trey.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that shakes out. Meanwhile, lots more coming on the pregame power-up. We're going inside the trenches. The Jets D-line versus the Pats O-line. That's one to watch. We'll talk to former Patriots lineman Marshall Newhouse about it next on the pregame power-up. Well, as we continue on the pregame power-up, getting set for the Week 3 matchup to start in the AFC East between the Jets and the Patriots, the Jets are hoping all these struggles are behind them. They have lost 15 straight games prior to that Week 18 win against the Patriots last season. They're trying to win back-to-back wins against the Patriots for the first time since the 2008-2009 season. Oh, by the way, they're 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games, and they haven't closed at 6 or higher since 2000. And then let's keep this in mind. The Jets are trying to win multiple games in September. The last time they did that was 2015. So for more on this matchup, let's go back out to East Rutherford, New Jersey with Emerson Latzia for more on the new-look Patriots team and the uphill battle they'll be facing tonight.
Thank you very much, Trey. I am here with Doug Codd, good friend of mine who covers the Patriots for the Boston Herald. Doug knows this team as well as most people out there, which is why I have some hard-hitting questions for you, Doug. The first being, we obviously know Belichick is gone. Mayo has taken over. We're 2 games in. What has carried over from the previous regime to this one?
Certainly on defense, a lot has carried over. It is essentially the same defense that Gerard Mayo is running. Defensive coordinator DeMarcus Covington, he was the defensive line coach last year. Gerard Mayo, as you mentioned, linebackers coach last year. So they're doing a lot of the same different things. They're really mixing and matching coverages, which is a staple of the Patriots defense. They show one thing before the snap, they move it into something completely different after the snap. They've been doing a lot of that. Could be effective against Aaron Rodgers, could not be, just because he's such a veteran quarterback. But they actually have put in some new elements of the defense as well, from the Ravens, the Giants, the Packers. Outside linebackers coach Drew Wilkins, he came over from the Ravens and the Giants. He instilled some things. Defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery from the Packers, he also installed some new things. So some different little twists in here, but most of all, same defense. Offense completely different, though.
But sticking with the defense here, it's a defense now that no longer has Juwan Bentley on it. That was your leading tackler last year. How the heck do the Patriots account for losing someone not only so big on the field, but in the locker room?
Yeah, that's a big thing, is leadership. I was talking to Raekwon McMillan, who's going to be that top fill-in right away. And he was saying that he's one of the best leaders that he's ever dealt with, that he's ever worked with. And it's Raekwon McMillan's 8th year in the league. But Raekwon McMillan will be that top guy. They've still got Jelani Tavai in there as well. McMillan, though, great story. He tore his ACL back in his rookie season, tore his ACL again in 2021, tore his Achilles in 2023. And all of these were preseason injuries. Now he's very grateful to be on the field at all. So it'll be a great story if he performs well. One other element there, after week 4, they can get Sione Takitaki off the PUP list. That'll help big time.
All right, talk to me here about the offensive line. You had every guy on the freaking Patriots offensive line this week on the injury report. Hell, one guy last weekend was like, screw you guys, I'm going home, and walked away and is now contemplating retirement. How would you describe the current state of the Patriots offensive line?
And it's just in constant turmoil. It's basically a disaster, and it has been since the spring, but things have really only gotten worse. So as you mentioned, week 1 starter, Chukwuma Okorafor, lasted 12 snaps before he was benched. After week 1 said, guys, I'm out, and placed on the exempt left squad list, contemplating retirement, as you said. So then Vidarian Lowe, he's the guy who steps in. Now he's hurt. So he's got a knee injury, not going to play in this game. So it's week 3. They're on their 3rd starting left tackle, one of the most important positions on the field. That's going to be a rookie probably by the name of Caden Wallace. Came from Penn State, 3rd-round pick. The problem here, didn't play left tackle in college. Played right tackle.
They're screwed.
They drafted him, said, we think he's athletic enough to play left tackle. Didn't do a lot of it in the summer, though. Tough matchup against the Jets. Could be worse, but we'll just see what he can do, because he's the only option really there left.
Well, it sounds like Jacoby Brissett is going to be absolutely murdered tonight. And speaking of Jacoby Brissett here, he targeted wide receivers last week 5 times, only 3 catches made by wide receivers. How do they get them more involved, and do they need to? Although, hey, I'm not complaining about Hunter Henry, that production.
Absolutely, yeah. Hunter Henry was great in week 2. I think they're going to force it, though, because Gerard Mayo is even saying this week, we have to push the ball downfield. Fans are saying it, the radio's saying it, media is saying it, everyone's saying it, including people within the building. So I think they will try to force the ball downfield. It'll be Demario Douglas. I think it'll be Jalen Polk. I actually think Jacoby Brissett could wind up throwing a decent amount in this game.
No, Doug, that's not what they do.
It's not what they do, but I think there's enough pressure on them right now that they might have to do it. One more thing, if you have time.
Please.
Emerson, you know me very well. You probably don't know this about me, though. I live and breathe for two things.
What?
One, my family. Two, showdown captain mode on DraftKings.
Big guy. Wow.
One guy like Alan Lazard, 6'5", 230-something pounds. He's going up against Marcus Jones in this game, 5'8", 188 pounds. That's a mismatch. Geno Smith last week, targeting the slot a lot. I think it's going to be another matchup there.
Young Doug Codd, thank you kindly, my friend. Trey, I'm going to toss it back to you, but you guys will be tossing it back to me coming up. I'm going to be mingling with a bunch of Jets fans and just how miserable and how difficult it is to be a Jets fan.
Guys, thanks. And you haven't mingled until you put together Emerson Latzia and Jets fans.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the ultimate commingling situation.
Scary, kind of.
Well, let's take a look at the Patriots, though. They have allowed the second highest pressure rate against 4 or fewer pass rushers so far this season at 42%. The Jets have generated a league-high 42.8% pressure rate with 4 or fewer pass rushers this season. So you look at the numbers, Claudia, the data suggests this is a huge opportunity for the Jets to sort of dominate the trenches. So we heard Doug say that they're going to give Jacoby Brissett more options. It seems to me, looking at that data, we might just want to continue to pound that rock with Ramondre Stevenson because that's the one thing the Jets' defensive line hasn't done well the first 2 weeks.
This is true. I just fear with this team, regardless, if you're going to be one-dimensional, it's going to catch up to you, and I could see that happening in this game. I know you don't see a ton coming from this Jets offense. I think I maybe trust them a little bit more to get some points up on the board. And if the Patriots do fall behind, I'm just worried about them catching up if they do just run the ball.
I agree with you, but I do think people are sleeping on this Patriots defense. I know they lost their leading tackler from a year ago, but Keon has been unbelievable.
He has been.
They have lockdown corners in the secondary. I just think this Patriots defense is not being looked at the right way it should be. And speaking of defense, obviously the Jets, without Jermaine Johnson, are still waiting for Hassan Reddick to show up. And he put out a cryptic, I guess, tweet, for lack of a better term, on this day before this game beginning, basically saying only God can find a way. Now, I have issues with the way he's handled this because he's thrown away about $5 million to this point. And every game he doesn't show up, he's forfeiting an $800,000 check. So I guess my question is, why didn't you do what Jamar Chase did? Why don't you hold in and get your money? Because you're not getting that money back. People need to understand, when they redid the CBA most recently, there's no language that allows a team to forgive, even if the Jets wanted to, and because this has become so, acidic, for lack of a better term. I don't think they want to at this point, but if they chose to go that route, they could have. He's literally just lighting money on fire, and I don't understand why this is the choice he's making.
He is, but I also will say, with how the NFL across the board has handled a lot of contracts, it makes me question. Wasn't there a conversation heading into this, what he wanted? Why has it taken this long?
Thank you. And if that's the case, then that's an organizational failure, right? Because if you're going to make the trade for him and give up Bryce Huff, who was a very good young pass rusher for that Jets defense last season, you had to know what the parameters you were dealing with this player you were trading for. And if you didn't, that's on you as an organization. All right, but so many games are won and lost in the trenches, and the big guys never get their credit. We showed the big guys love on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in one more time Marshall Newhouse, longtime NFL offensive lineman, played his ball at TCU, has been in a bunch of these games. Marshall, objectively, as you look at this Patriots offensive line, we saw the pressure rates. I don't want to say how bad are they, but where are the struggles that you see?
Yeah, it's easy. It's okay to call it a little chaotic, a little hectic, a little unsettled. Even through training camp and the preseason games, the performance just wasn't there. They're trying out a lot of new pieces, the new combinations, and a lot of young players. And then you add in now the injury bug hitting them with Vidarian Lowe, City. So we're still not sure about center David Andrews. And you're going to be throwing in rookies into this mix. That just adds to the problem a little bit more. They're not able to protect Jacoby Brissett. They're not able to really open lanes like they can for Ramondre Stevenson. So they have a lot of work to do. The thing about offensive linemen is that we're resilient. And as we see league-wide trends of these games getting really tight, nip and tuck, less scoring overall, that gives you a little bit of an opportunity to maybe keep the game close if you're the Patriots, but they've got a lot to figure out in this offensive line.
You mentioned that David Andrews injury. Now let's hope it looks like he's out there, has a helmet on. Those are all good signs, because if anybody watched preseason with David Andrews on the sideline when they couldn't have a clean snap, oh my God, they need him to be healthy. Now let's talk about this run game, because it is very clear when anybody talks about the Patriots, it's Ramondre Stevenson, how good he is, how explosive he is, the fact that the Patriots stay in games because of him. My question to you is, how long can that really go on for this team?
Listen, the worst thing about the NFL is that when you make yourself one-dimensional, or if a team, if you allow a team to make you one-dimensional, you can just shut the door on playing winning football. Ramondre Stevenson is a really powerful, really gritty back, but when he's getting hit at a 60% clip behind the line of scrimmage, as he is thus far through 2 games, that's just not sustainable. If you're talking about opening up the pass game, well, you need some play action involved in there. If you're talking about musical chairs on the offensive line, you need play action, you need screens, you need max protection. And if you can't even run the ball to make it seem like you might be a threat running the ball, then you're up a creek without a paddle. There's just no way to even get things going. Coach Jerod Mayo has talked about wanting to be a run-heavy, a run-first team. That's all well and good, but you still got to be able to gash people. This Jets defense is bottom 3rd in the league in run defense, so there's an opportunity here tonight. Usually on these Thursday night games as well, the game plan is a little parsed down, a little simplified. So you're hoping, hey, we got new guys in there. Let's just fire off the ball, hip in the mouth, see where things go, simplify the game, and then hopefully that can open things up on the back end.
Yeah, Marshall, it's one thing to be run heavy. It's another thing to be pass invisible, which is sort of what the Jets have been. But let's talk about that defense. You mentioned the struggles the Jets have had stopping the run the first 2 weeks. Jermaine Johnson out for the year with that torn Achilles. We mentioned Hassan Reddick still holding out. And now it looks like C.J. Mosley, their unbelievable linebacker, is not going to play. They've elevated a linebacker from the practice squad, and Mosley's locker, according to pregame reports, did not have a helmet nor a jersey in it. How much will those players not being there affect what the Jets can do defensively, especially against the run?
There are huge losses right there, because I think people are still coming around, including myself, in realizing that this is not the Jets defense that we saw really take hold of this team last year in Aaron Rodgers' absence. A defense that really kept them in games, won them a few games. You saw Sauce Gardner's ascension. They have Quinnen Williams right now in the middle, and that's about it. And God bless the big guy. He's elite. He's an all-pro caliber defensive tackle, but he can't do it alone. So you lose guys in free agency. You have a guy who you traded for who's holding out, and now you've got an injury, a season-ending injury. These are hard holes to climb out of, on top of already being poor against the run to start the season. Now, if there's a group that can turn it around, you'd like to think a Robert Saleh-led defense can turn it around. But we're heaping on them the expectations of last year. And as we guys have figured out, from year to year, these teams are drastically different. Even if sometimes this personnel is almost exact, the teams are drastically different. So this defense, until they show me otherwise, has a lot of room to improve.
Juwan Bentley out for the Patriots too, so they're dealing with some defensive injuries of their own. But when it comes down to it, there is one goal: try and get to Aaron Rodgers. And you got to protect Aaron Rodgers at the start of your career. We only have a 2-game sample size to work with, but what would you say your assessment is of Aaron Rodgers this season?
Listen, I like it. It's okay. He's played good, but not great. You can see he's working his way back into getting the feel for things. You can call it rust or what have you, but you're already 40 years old and you come off an Achilles. That's a lot to rebound from. But on top of that, he's trying to find out guys that he can trust, guys that he can put the ball, they'll be where the playbook says they're going to be. Right now, he's forcing the ball to Garrett Wilson because he trusts Garrett Wilson. He's forcing the ball to Breece Hall because he trusts Breece Hall. Where are the guys like Allen Lazard, who he has a relationship with, who can come in and be reliable targets for him down the field? Because I think he's only going to improve. Right now, he's got 3 touchdowns. He's got a pretty good completion percentage. He's doing things okay. It hasn't been killing them. But to get to the Aaron Rodgers that we're accustomed to seeing, which I think there's still a lot of that left in there, these other guys are going to have to show and prove to him that they can be where he expects them to be, and they can make the plays that he puts them in the position to make.
All right, Marshall, thanks. We'll see how the game pans out tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
We'll be back here on Pregame Powerup. More from MetLife. Emerson Latzia hangs out with the Jets fans. We'll see you.
Well, as we continue here in the pregame power-up, if this season's first 2 weeks are a guide, then go with the Patriots tonight because it's been the year of the dog so far in 2024. We'll see if the Pats can continue that. Underdogs in week 2, 11-4-1 against the spread. Underdogs of 6 or more points, which we have tonight, have gone 8-0 throughout 2 weeks. The two biggest dogs each week have won outright. The Pats were the team in week 1 against Cincinnati. So to put this all in some sort of perspective that makes sense to you, the viewer, who better to bring in than the duo from DraftKings Network's Underdog Show, Peter Keating and Jordan Brenner.
Thanks, Trey. We are the Underdogs. I'm Jordan Brenner. That's Peter Keating. Every week on our show, we talk about why unlikely things happen in sports. And Peter, there's been no greater source for uncertainty than the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. Last week, underdogs were 11-4-1 against the spread, including 8-8 straight up. For the season, underdogs of 7 points or more are 3-0 straight up, and dogs of 6+ or more are 8-0 against the spread. Peter, what's going on?
Chaos. Jordan, are we living in an episode of Get Smart? It's an old TV reference. You know, I know you love when I make those. 8-8 straight up in week 2, and some gigantic games. What was happening in that Eagles game? What was happening in that Ravens game? Jordan, it's early in the season. It's chaos time. And, you know, we've had an awful lot of happy surprises collide with negative surprises. Teams that are doing better than expected against teams doing worse than expected. And what happens when those two kinds of teams meet? Complete chaos and upsets abound.
Right. Well, I continue to think that part of the reason for all this increased uncertainty early in the season is the shortened preseason. Teams are only playing 3 games, and a lot of teams aren't using their starters much at all. I think 13 teams played preseason games without giving a single snap to their starting quarterback. So what happens is teams enter the season with different levels of preparedness. Some teams are more ready to go early. Other teams are still figuring it out. So the first month of the season, in a lot of ways, is an extended preseason. We don't really know who these teams are or will be.
Well, look, whatever the trends are, whether it's the preseason developments, whether it's changes in penalty calling, whether it's, you know, we've heard a lot of talk about single high safety defenses being back in vogue. It's not just that it's early in the season. This early season run right now is really low scoring historically. So there's a lot of disruption, no offensive continuity, and it's noticeably scoring's down. Scoring is the lowest in almost 40 years. Week 1, again, low in week 2. So it's not just that it's early in the season, it's low historically.
Right. Well, speaking of historically, over the past 10 seasons, in week 3, winless teams have gone 40-21 against the spread. That's almost 66%. Thanks to our trends tool over at Action Labs, our friends there. This week, that points to 5 teams that you could bank on. Not teams you'd like to, normally like to back if you've been watching them through the first 5 weeks of the season, but that's exactly the point. The Giants, the Broncos, the Panthers, the Rams, and the Jaguars, all 0-2, all qualify by that stat. And Peter, it speaks to the point again where early in the season, you basically want to zig when everyone else is zagging.
So first of all, that's the simplest system imaginable, right? If you are winless, we should bet on you. I like a couple of early season systems, like teams that go 2 games not covering the spread do really well in week 3 when they're underdogs, or road underdogs in games where scoring is expected to be low do really well in week 3. This week, all of those systems converge on the teams you just mentioned because it's fairly simple to pick winless teams, and you're exactly right. Betting on underdogs means you have to find value plays, which means you have to, by definition, support teams that the public is running away from, and you have to zag when everyone else zigs.
Well, it's been a profitable system for the first 2 weeks. There's a lot of numbers pointing to taking teams that you don't think are very good in week 3. So back the dogs with us, and we'll see you on the underdogs this coming week.
All right, guys, thanks very much. Here are some of the bigger underdogs this week. The Broncos at the Bucks. The Bucks given 5.5 there. The Panthers really only getting 5.5 at the Raiders. Jaguars at the Bills. Jags getting 5 there. Commanders, Bengals. 49ers. The 49ers and Rams is an amazing one to me. I don't know where to go with that one because both teams are beaten to a pulp, and it's week 3. Like Cooper Kupp is out. Puka Nacua is out. The injury report for the 49ers is real and spectacular right now with everybody playing. And remember, this summer the 49ers had to cancel a joint practice with the Tennessee Titans because they were so banged up. Usually when that happens in the summer, it translates over into the regular season.
Yeah, CMC out, Kittle now didn't practice this week, Debo, of course, banged up. But LA does have problems of their own, which is why you point out that number at 6.5. There's going to be resistance getting to that 7, of course, that key number of 7. But 6.5 is still a lot of points for how many question marks there are surrounding both squads. That's the one game that stands out to me. What you could do as well is throw in a 6-point teaser. I won't get too crazy here, but you pick 2 teams basically.
Get a little crazy.
2 teams. We're a little crazy for Trey's birthday. So 2 teams, and you take 6 points away basically. So you could bring the Niners down to a half. They just have to win, basically. A pick 'em, right? You could pair them with another squad, Bengals down to under 3, down to 1, right? Price of -120 at DraftKings. That to me is a great play because I don't have to sweat covering the 6.5 for the Niners, and I don't have to sweat covering the 7 with the Bengals. They should win those games, but I don't want to sweat it.
All right, well, speaking of sweating, we need to talk to someone who's going to tell us what they're sweating tonight, right?
Okay. Yes, Captain Book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
Didn't know where you were going with that one, but I thought we'd just throw that out there.
Who's sweating? Captain Book. The book is sweating because there is some money on one side tonight. That is what we like to call liability. And Captain Book tells us every primetime game where it's at.
It's an AFC East rivalry matchup tonight, and the main storyline is Aaron Rodgers, who is returning to MetLife Stadium for the first time since rupturing his Achilles 4 snaps into last season. Rodgers has had a shaky start to the season with only 343 passing yards through 2 games and an average depth of target that's toward the bottom of the league. Sharps have keyed in on that this week and are betting on the Jets offense to underperform against the New England defense that's exceeded their preseason expectations. The public, however, thinks differently, backing the Jets and their offensive weapons to have a huge game. Wilson, Hall, and Lazard are all big liabilities, and our single biggest liability is the Jets to cover the spread. As is typical for primetime games, we'd love if the Jets won without covering, and we're going to need the under in a game with a very low total of only 38.5. That puts us once again on the same side as Sharps, rooting for a boring, close game.
That's interesting, right? They're concerned about the Jets covering the spread, and that spread has gone up, as we said, to 6.5 points.
Right.
I don't think people fully understand how good this Patriots defense is. I get it. They've got some injuries, but they are really, really good at clamping down. And we haven't seen, we're making fun of the Patriots for not being explosive. The Jets are not explosive either. I mean, let's just be honest about it.
That's fair, yes. Yeah. And so what he was just talking about there and why we saw that movement back to 6.5 is because of the sharp money. So the public, the bets are actually coming in on the Patriots because everybody's all excited how they've looked in the first 2 weeks. But that's the problem, and that's why you look at the difference between the public and the sharp money, because the sharps are looking at these massive injuries on the O-line, the injury with, their defensive captain, whereas the public's just like, hey, the Patriots look pretty good.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, he's old.
Yeah.
He's coming off an Achilles, so that's definitely the difference between the 2 bets there.
And again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out tonight as the Jets, once again, trying to win multiple games in the month of September for the first time since 2015. In case you're wondering, yes, that is the longest streak or drought of that exact era in the NFL right now. So again, for more on what's going on tonight, let's go back out to MetLife Stadium, where we find once again our guy Emerson Latzia. Emerson, have you mingled, or have we done the mingling, and how did it go with Jets faithful?
Yeah, let me tell you what. These are my people, okay?
That scares me.
They like to eat. They like to eat, they like to drink, and a lot of the times they're just really miserable, as you guys have already mentioned. 1969 was the last Super Bowl they won. So, again, put in the work, doing some research. Listen to this blog that I found, the 6 emotional stages of a Jets fan. Hope, happiness, denial, anger, depression, loneliness and reflection, and then acceptance. And it sounds like many of the fans who I talked to today are already at the acceptance phase. Scott, how would you describe being a Jets fan? Oh, that's a nervous laugh.
Very stressful, very stressful. It's a long time, a lot of heartache, but you die hard and you just stay with your team. You never give up on your team.
Yeah.
And that's why we're still here, and that's why this is our year. Last year was a little rough, but we waited our year. Now it's our time. Now it's time to go to work. And tonight's going to be the loudest you've ever heard it in MetLife Stadium.
What would you give up in order to see the Jets win a Super Bowl this year?
I'd give up on a left arm. I mean,
Really? This one holding your beer right now? I guess, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that's me. I'd do anything for another. Yeah. I want that Super Bowl.
What would you give up in order to see the Jets win a Super Bowl this year?
My arm, my leg.
Oh.
I'd give the truck. I'd sell my wife. I don't know.
Hey, there he is. Hell yeah, brother.
I'd probably give a toe, a finger.
Wow, we've already had an arm and a leg. I think someone's kid, definitely this guy's wife up here.
The kid for sure. The kid for sure. He's gone. Absolutely. You want the kid, take the kid. Super Bowl, I got it. We're good.
What's the worst part about being a Jets fan?
Listening to the naysayers, I guess. You can rip on the Jets all you want. I mean, Buffalo arguably had one of the best football teams 4 years in a row. They never won a Super Bowl.
What does it take to be a Jets fan, though?
What's heart? Heart, the love of the team, the love of the game, and the love to basically deal with everything that goes on with it.
It's like having family members that are like, eh. You have some good days and you have some bad days, and you just run with it.
Right, and then. Yeah.
So listen, guys, those were all people who were lined up to get into MetLife Stadium tailgate lots at like 11:30 this morning. So many of the folks behind me have been going for a very long time. We did run into like one guy who I thought was 80 years old, and I said, what would you give up in order for the Jets to win a Super Bowl? And he's like, I've already seen it, Super Bowl III. And let me tell you what, he looked like he had spent some time in Alcatraz. Like he was a little rough around the edges just from being a Jets fan alone. So these people have battled. How are you? Yeah, you're looking good. Good luck tonight. All right, guys. As I mentioned, these are my people.
Yeah,
that's it for us.
Emerson, when we were out for Kansas City week 1, there were people lined up at 5:30 in the morning to get in. So the Chiefs have 6 hours on the Jets fan. I did find it hilarious, a couple things in those reports. Number one, the guy said the hardest thing about being a Jets fan is the naysayers. No, they're not naysayers. Yeah. They're just explaining things that actually happened. I do love the fact that the way the Jets fans look at it is that they're naysayers when all we're doing is reciting historical data. That takes a warped perspective to go from these things that actually happened to calling them naysayers.
So, listen, I was like, how do you handle that? And they say, we try to shut out the noise. But I have another interesting story for you. I walked into my hotel room last night, Trey, and on my bed, not one, but 2 fortune cookies. And I said, okay, well, this will set the tone for the rest of the trip. And in one of them, it says, have the courage to get a little lost. You'll find your way back if you need to. And the Jets have been lost since 1969, and many of these fans continue to feel that pain season in and season out.
Emerson, one last thing here before we let you go. I did love how quickly the guy said when he said I give up a toe or a finger, and you said, well, somebody's already given up an arm and a spouse, and he's the kids are right out. I mean, it went from 1 to 1,000 pretty damn quickly for that one Jets fan, going from a toe to his offspring in a second as soon as he learned somebody else had upped the ante.
I mean, let's not ignore the fact that toes are very important, and like your kids are cool, but you need your toes to maintain balance. So, I guess the guy just simply likes his toes more than his children. And as a sad Jaguars fan, I get their pain. I too would give up my spouse for a Super Bowl.
Emerson Latzia, you are definitely a man of the people. Those people scare me, but you are their person, and I want you to know that.
I love you guys. Happy birthday, Trey.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. It's good to be 40 for the 37th year. Lots more coming here as we continue on the pregame power-up. It's almost that time.
It is almost that time. Drum roll for Next Gen Cat. Let's see who he likes for a first touchdown. He's 2-1 so far on pregame power-up. Picking Breece Hall in week 1. Devontae Smith Monday night. Let's see.
Garrett Wilson. He's got Hunter Henry, who had a bunch of targets.
Okay,
I feel like we fed him catnip, and he has to. What is that back paw touching? It's Ramondre Stevenson, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
I'm telling you, the Jets used to have ground and pound. That's the Patriots now. Guys, you want to make sure you want to check out Gojo and Golic tomorrow as the guys sit down with some guy named LeBron. Yes, LeBron James. An exclusive interview with the King. He opens up about his Olympic journey, playing with his son Bronny, and then he makes his picks for Week 3 of the NFL. You want a little taste, as we say in the business? Here's a little taste of where Gojo and Golic asked LeBron if he'd be willing to follow a fellow GOAT into the broadcast booth.
I definitely love the sport. I love basketball. I love football, and I watch it not only as a fan, but also, just breaking down, matchups and things of that nature. I was brought into sports. When you grow up in Northeast Ohio, listen, you grow up in sports, so, it'd be great. I see Tom Brady doing it, he's been great so far. And we will see, even if it's just a guest appearance, one game or two, when I'm done playing. But it's always fun to give back to the game.
I think he's going to own a broadcast network with the money he's made as opposed to sitting in a broadcast booth. That's just me, right? It feels like that's the play LeBron has made. Yeah. I don't want to be a participant. I want to own and have other people participate.
But also he's like, maybe we'll see, as if nobody's going to let you in. Whatever you want to do, LeBron James, it doesn't matter what sport. They would be happy to have you play tight end, right? Like he said he loves football. He could really just play any sport. He's dominant.
He could. There was that flag football game they had a few years ago during the NBA lockout where LeBron and Kevin Durant were playing, and they were so big. They were so incredibly big. So we'll see what happens going forward with LeBron. Meanwhile, what do you think about what might happen with Breece Hall tonight?
He might go off because he's been going off, and he went off last season. He has been a stud through 2 games for the Jets so far, leading with 116 rushing yards, 12 catches, 207 scrimmage yards. And interestingly enough, we saw this matchup with the Patriots last season. He set a career high with 37 carries, 178 rushing yards in Week 18 of last season. Tonight, he is the most bet player at DraftKings to score a touchdown. He has had at least 1 touchdown in 5 straight games, which is why, Trey, you're seeing that priced at minus 165. Ramondre Stevenson, though, has had at least 1 in 3 of the last 4, and he is at plus 125. For more on how people are betting tonight's game, let's bring in DK and social media correspondent Megan Townsley.
We've got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets taking on the Patriots tonight on Thursday Night Football. And it looks like so far, people in the DraftKings Sportsbook betting groups are favoring the Pats a little bit. Rico Bosco from Barstool is taking Ramondre Stevenson to score a touchdown. And if you're scared of Sauce Gardner, this is the way to go because the run game is probably going to be your best friend. Our own Nick Fryer in the DK Network betting group is cooking up his own same game parlay for tonight's game. Let's take a look at the first leg. He's liking the Pats plus 7.5 spread alternate and also under 40.5 total points, taking the alternate there. And I cannot blame him for this because we haven't seen that many touchdowns so far through Week 2. It has been a field goal frenzy so far. So, Nick, I'm rolling with you there. That was a lot of picks for the Pats. The Jets do need some love too. So if you want to find these groups for yourself, go ahead and open up the DraftKings Sportsbook and then find the social tab at the top and then click betting groups. And hey, if you like what people are betting on in this group, you can tell them. You could comment on the post. You could like it. You could dislike it. I mean, it is an AFC East matchup tonight, but overall, it's just a very fun social channel. So go check it out before the game kicks off tonight.
All right, Megan, thanks. One quick thing on Breece Hall. You talked about it. I mean, Breece Hall has had at least 90 scrimmage yards and a touchdown in 9 straight games. The only player with a longer stretch dating back to last season would be Christian McCaffrey with 11. He's tied with Tyreek Hill. And right behind him are Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry. That's how consistent Breece Hall has been. Who do you like tonight?
It's pretty good company, I guess you could say. Yeah. I'm tempted to tease this down with the Jets because I think the Jets could win, but I think it's going to be a very tight game. I don't think there's any way they cover the 6.5. It's probably a prop game for me, but credit to the Patriots. They've played very clean football, just 8 penalties, no turnovers. If they do that tonight, they can get over those injuries. They'll keep the game close.
Look, I get it. Aaron Rodgers makes a big difference. I understand that, right? But the Jets on Thursday night are the anti-Josh Allen. They are 0-6 straight up and against the spread in their last Thursday night contest. I am riding with the Patriots on this one. We'll see what happens. I'm Next Gen Hal. Next Gen Hal. That's Claudia.
Happy birthday, Trey!
Oh, stop with that already. We'll see you on Monday night. Have a great night.